to attain, because if you look at the structure of society itself, there are structural imbalances, structural problems that create crisis, and you have a lot of inequalities, and so on and so forth. And so because of that, it is very difficult to have what is called total peace, where everybody will live like Saint Aquinas proffered in his thesis, that it's the state of peace is a state where everybody returns to the state of nature. I mean, where when God created peaceful and everything is serene. We cannot have that. That got broken with the Adam and Eve kind of situation that resulted in eventually, and since then the world has known no peace. So it's we just have to keep working at things that promote peace, and that is most important. Trying to understand one another, removing barriers. Gender inequalities against women and against girls, and trying to promote understanding, interfacing with the main stakeholders when it comes to peace. For example, there is what is called multi-track diplomacy in peace studies. And so what that means is that you keep engaging with the major stakeholders, the religious bodies, the government, the civil society, the academia, and so on and so forth. Now, once you begin to do all that, you are trying to reduce the occurrence of violence and conflict in the world. And that is what matters. But like I said, it will be very, very difficult to have total peace. But we can have, we can keep trying to ensure that at least we have a greater measure of peace.
What's your message to the African continent? Across all spheres of life, African continent, people in Africa are always, they've always attached emotions to a whole lot of things that happen in other parts of the world, and those things define the way they relate here. Let me take you quickly to the world of football. I've seen situations where fans of Chelsea Football Club, they fight with fans of Arsenal at just football matches, and these teams are not in Nigeria. So it's really become a very big issue over time and all of that. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that those things that happen in other parts of the world, they define events here. For Africa, we mentioned Taliban, Shabab, and all of that. These are conflicts that have actually come into Africa, and they have defined the way Africans have related with one another. What is the message for Africa as a continent?
Well, let me say that those things that you say do not emanate from Africa but affect us happen because the world is a global village. And there is that kind of interdependency. And when you look at some of the theories of dependency, some of the problems that Africa, Asia, and Latin America have today have largely been problems that have been foisted on them by the Western countries through their incorporation into the Western capitalist or even socialist orientations. And if you have that, there is no way that what happens there will not affect us. And if you look at the globalization thing in particular, you will discover that there is no way that what happens in the world will not affect other parts of the world, because there is that kind of interdependency. But the thing to do is to begin to now sift the shaft from the grain and begin to see those things that will make Africa or developing nations of Asia and Latin America to also develop the way the Western world. We should not take everything hook, line, and sinker. We should begin to now become critical of those elements that do not make us to develop our economy, do not make us to develop as a people, and then begin to now see that we have to hold our own destiny in our hands, because that is very important.
All right. You mentioned earlier the multi-track diplomacy and the need for critical stakeholders to be engaged, you know, the religious leaders and all of that. And I think you are a critical stakeholder too, especially because you're a peace scholar and of course an expert when it comes to security too. So what is it that your institution or the team of experts that you have interfaced with are doing to help Nigeria as a country right now to deal with the issues around herders, farmers' crisis and all of that, just so we could also know that, okay, there are things that you are doing to make impact in society and all that?
Well, at the level of SPSP, a lot of position papers have been written to government on way forward in curbing this herders farmers crisis. And not only that, even the major one, the Boko Haram crisis that we have, and some other crises that, religious crisis that we have. And every time we go on sensitization, we arrange conferences, seminars, and things like that to sensitize the major stakeholders on the way forward, especially as it relates to harmonious living among people of Nigeria. Now, for this year, what we are trying to do is to ensure that, for example, tomorrow there will be a lecture at the so there will be a lecture, and at the NCDSC to be taken by engineer Segun Ogunyonwo, who is a fellow of the Society for Peace Studies and Practice. We will also be going on a peace walk, and there will be a visitation to schools. These are ways of sensitizing people to the various peace prospects that we have. But
I think it's also very important, the kind of crowd that we bring there to those programs. Are they the ones that are critical to this? The kind of people that will come to listen to that lecture?
Yes,
and
yes.
The kind of people that you're also targeting, because if you're doing a walk and people don't understand what you're working
for,
you know, or what you're working for,
there will be
are you taking that into consideration?
No, there will be banners that would, and the flyers that will be distributed along the way. And what we are doing today is also part of the media engagement to ensure that people are aware of the fact that tomorrow is World Peace Day. So, and not only in Ogun State, across the country, this kind of program is being
so
anchored.
What about, how do you interface with the issues that has to do with the issues in the north? For example, when we talk about negotiation, you know, I listened to an expert talking about dealing with the bandits, dealing with the Boko Harams, dealing with the criminal elements that we call them because of the atrocities they've committed to fellow Nigerians, that it is important for government to engage the critical stakeholders just so they would get the result. So do you see that the government is really engaging the true people, especially you mentioned the religious leaders, that would do the work of enlightening the people more, just so they could know that for development to take place in the country, we need to be at a level of peace. We have to have a relative peace for that to happen in the country?
Well, what the government is doing as regards the issue of Boko Haram and as it relates to amnesty for those who have been involved in killings and maimings, especially the bandits and so on. A lot of misgivings have been expressed with the way government is handling that. And although government has its own reason for pursuing what it is pursuing, for example, we have said that the military option cannot solve the problem. And maybe that's why the government is trying to extend amnesty to them. But we have seen over time that even extending amnesty to these people does not suffice, has not solved any problem. Look at the case of Zamfara. Amnesty has been granted, monies have been offered, and you still have more of these armed bandits going about killing people, maiming people, collecting ransom and things like that. So it's a very dicey one, and that's why I said that when it comes to the issue of peace, conflict, just don't allow conflict to start, because once it starts, it becomes hydra-headed, and curbing it becomes a matter that is very vexatious and very cumbersome. And so that's why we must continue to do those things that promote understanding, that promote equity and justice within society, so that at least we won't have to recourse to crises and conflict resolution and things, because it's more expensive to go into all those things. The resources you need to resolve those conflicts. Look at Nigeria's situation. Monies that should have been used for developmental purposes have been pumped into fighting insurgency, fighting bandits, fighting the headers, buying arms and things like that. So what we continually say is that we must continue to do those things that will promote peace and understanding, and that's what the SPSP is all about.
We must thank you so much. Wish you the best of luck tomorrow with your group, and we hope the events of tomorrow will really strike the right chord. Thanks so much for coming. We'll be hosting Mr. Lekon Ketokun. He's a peace and conflict studies scholar, and there's a peace group in Ogun State, SPSP. That's what he's been former chairman of that group twice in the past, and so he's here this morning to look at that point. Tomorrow is the day, World Peace Day, and we hope that all he has said on the program this morning will really be used for the development of society. We have to go on the program this morning, kneel down on the People's Daily. We thank you so much for joining us. Next Monday, Simiat and I will be back, and I will give you another edition of the show. Thanks so much for watching us. Bye for now.